talk about inequality in this country, what do you think we're talking about?
But you know the inequality.
No, I'm asking you.
You
If you were to give an explanation and a breakdown of what inequality is, what does it mean
explaining
to
to you
you?
now. I'm
Mm,
explaining to you now because
mm, mm,
inequality is previously, like previously, they are poorer, privileged individuals, privileged individuals in South Africa, right? Then becoming richer today because of attitude of continuing preach as your
Well,
crusade
well,
to
hardly
make sure
because of
that black people
attitudes.
don't go up.
It's actually because of the state of the economy and how our economy is structured. And so
That is
when we
why
when we
that is
talk
why
about inequality, Sello,
that
when
is
we talk
that is
about
why I'm saying
inequality
that is why I'm
embedded,
saying you ignore that fact. You ignore that
no,
white people who
no,
white people who are getting
yeah,
those
yeah,
whatever.
Sello,
But
no,
when it comes to
it's
a black
simply not
person
true. It's
who's
simply not
doing
true.
an honest business, like almost portion of
Okay,
black people who are jumping.
what honest business was Dr. Mashazi doing?
Who's Dr. Method?
Mashazi.
Come again?
What honest business was Dr. Mashazi doing?
No, I don't know Dr. Method. You might know him or her. Maybe you can explain to us.
Mashazi. Were you
Who?
watching the Maganga Commission last week,
No,
Sulu?
I don't. I don't have time for that.
Mm,
I'm busy
that's
during the day.
yeah,
I'm trying to
that's
say.
part of
I'm trying
the
to say,
issue.
Katie,
That's part
Katie,
of the issue because
Katie,
where
let
the
me,
conversation started, it
Katie.
started with the evidence and the proof of the evidence that came out of the Maganga Commission of Inquiry. And the example there that is used, that I was using, was about how somebody like Dr. Mashazi, who has been a civil servant for close on over 2 decades, is able to explain the life that she has access to. So if you're not going to listen within context and you're going to want to bring whatever meaning and understanding you have to issues when you don't even take the time out to bother to watch what the consequence of all of this corruption at best means for the people of this country, then we can't engage in a conversation, Silo. And when we talk about inequality, embedded in that is the structure of this country's economy, that it only serves a select few and not the majority. But who has been in power for the past 30 years? Who has had the opportunity to fundamentally transform the lives of South Africans and yet has not done that? Let's answer that question. Who has had the opportunity to fundamentally change this very inequality that you're speaking about today? And by the way, Selo, I encourage you, because you claim we don't talk about
No.
inequality. At 11 o'clock, we had a conversation planned before this conversation that is going to be looking at the very issue of inequality. So don't be selective. Let's not be selective around the issues that you want to raise or that you want to talk about. Inequality is precisely the fact that there are people that are unable to access economic justice in this country, not because they're not trying hard enough, but simply because the way the system is structured does not allow it. That is the reality of the situation that we are in. And so don't say we don't talk about inequality. Every single day on this show, we talk about inequality and we talk about the role that people who are in being held accountable. You can't tell me that somebody can justify buying a 5 million rand house. Meanwhile, service delivery in their area is falling apart. And you say we don't talk about that. We do. Let's take you to the latest news update.
In our top stories, 3 people killed in Kailicha shack fire and Trump unveils a $2 billion farm aid package. Good morning. 3 people have been killed in a shack fire in the Blow-in formal settlement in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says the bodies of the deceased were found in the debris after the fire services extinguished the blaze. He says an inquest has been opened and they're probing the cause of the fire. Staying in the Western Cape, the Mobility Department says they're concerned about an increase in road crashes in the province. Chief Director Maxine Bezuidenhout says most of the crashes are preventable. She has urged motorists to be cautious.
Before you travel, make sure your vehicle is roadworthy. Check your tires, brakes, and lights. Avoid reckless overtaking, obey the speed limit, and never rush at the expense of your life or the lives of others. Drivers must remain alert for pedestrians at all times, especially at night and in residential areas and along busy roadways. Our officers are out in full force, but road safety starts with you. Slow down, stay alert, and arrive safely at your destination.
In other news, police say 6 people have been arrested for house robbery at a farm near Warden in the Free State. 5 suspects approached the complainant, opened his vehicle door and forcibly took his licensed pistol. Free State Police spokesperson Mohlahlana.
The suspects then fled the scene in the victim's Toyota Hilux, driving towards the N3. Upon reaching his farmhouse, the victim found his 76-year-old wife unharmed in the kitchen. It's reported that 5 unknown males had entered the house through the kitchen, pointing a firearm at her, and instructed her to lead them to the firearm safe.
The KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Education, Sipho Moka, has welcomed the findings by the Special Investigating Unit into the awarding of a contract for chemical toilets in 2022. The SIU found the contract, valued at over R2.5 million, was awarded irregularly to the service provider and extended unlawfully. The department has been ordered to institute disciplinary action against 16 officials who were involved in the awarding of the contract. The service provider is also expected to pay back the money and the profits earned from the contract. The spokesperson for the MEC, Mlungisi Mchali, says the department will comply with the SIU's directives.
The MEC has also directed the department to comply fully and to support the SIU in making sure that the recovery of losses suffered by the department are fully recovered. As a department, we must support the SIU's legal action to recover irregular profits and to hold service providers accountable for overcharging and failing to deliver on services as contracted.
And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a $12 billion aid package for American farmers affected by low crop prices and his own trade policies. Most of the money is earmarked for one-time payments to farmers who grow row crops like corn and soybeans. Sorghum and soybean growers have been hit hard by the Trump administration's trade dispute with China. The BBC's David Willis has the details.
This is a community that, of course, generally supports Donald Trump, whose backing helped him secure a second term in the White House, yet his trade policies have hurt them. And the president launched a trade war with China in the spring, of course. The tariffs he imposed on exports to the United States have cost the agricultural community here billions of dollars, it's estimated, in lost sales at a time when that community is also having to deal with the rising price of such things as fertilizers and tractors and so on.
Recapping the top story, 3 people have been killed in a shack fire in the Blow-in formal settlement in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Streaming Skim Sum on the way to class.
Catching the Premier League while waiting for your order.
Jamming to Metro FM before you even get out of bed.
On SABC Plus, sinayo yonke into ifunayo. Your show, your music, your way, anytime, anywhere. Zero subscription fees.
On your phone, tablet, or smart TV.
Download SABC Plus on iOS or Google Play Store.
The Playhouse Company proudly presents a Christmas celebration. One performance only on Saturday, 20 December at 3 p.m. Featuring Ayanda Ntanzi, Don Laka, Timothy Malloy, the powerful KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic Orchestra, the Playhouse Chorale, and many more incredible artists. Tickets from just 200 Rand. Book at WebTickets. The ultimate spectacular Christmas show. Bold, brilliant, and not to be missed. Only at the Playhouse Company.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, welcome to the second hour of the Talking Point. Coming up in this hour, we will take you to the ANC's NGC being held on the east of Johannesburg, bringing the latest there with my colleague Sakina Kamwendo. Before we get to that, we'll take a couple of your WhatsApp voice notes. And remember then, for the rest of the hour, we'll be in conversation with Brian Hirsch, the last segment that we have with him for the end of the year.
Morning, says Katie. Yeah, says Katie. At last, I felt disturbed about the what Silo has said. You know, if the attitude of the ANC members are just like Silo, then that ANC that is why it's going down to the drain because of Silo's attitude. He's not different from that's an ANC attitude members. So he mustn't come on air just to point fingers on you. It's not you. It's a reality. It's a fact. Facts are there. The evidence are there. ANC is a corrupt party. Thank you, says Katie. Sorry for that.
Good morning, Emmanuel Mdora in Durban. Your listeners, you think it's gonna come here on the public platform only to attack you right out before? No, we won't gonna allow that. Selo is only protecting his corrupt comrade. This country was never liberated by the ANC. We voted to get a democracy and freedom. You say, thank you.
Kedi, it is so impossible for ANC to be renewed again. Very, very, very impossible. Nothing that they're gonna do. I'm so sorry, Katie. Good morning, and SAFM listeners. Katie, there is nothing that ANC can do to change the fortune. Nothing. Nothing. And they are so realistic. You can hear them shouting and do whatever, but deep down on their mind, they know that there's nothing that they're gonna do to change it. For as long they cover each other from the wrongdoings. And I always say the best campaigning in any political party is to deliver. Do the service delivery. You're done. Nothing. You can shout as much as you can, but if you do the service delivery, you're done. Let's go from Cape Town.
Good morning, SKF. You are speaking to Leslie Drive from Masheshan. Thank you for saying it the way it is, like inequality is a crisis, poverty is a crisis, unemployment is a crisis that eventually leads to gender-based violence, the one that now they are saying is a crisis. They are just reacting.
Hashtag SFM Talking Point.
Well, the ANC's fifth National General Council has started off again this morning at the Birchwood Hotel. The last NGC was held in 2015, and the party uses this forum to review implementation of its resolutions and also in between its national conferences. Yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the council, emphasizing the need to renew or perish, and also discuss the challenges faced by the party, including the formation of the government of national unity. Well, our colleague and also presenter. So, SK, I'm a bit tongue tied because the 1 minute I wanted to say the update at noon presenter, and then I wanted to say my colleague, and then I just got stuck somewhere in the middle of that. But of course, you're all of those things. And you finished on Morning Live this morning on 404 and have rushed on over to our studios at the Birchwood Hotel at the Birchwood, and this is really to continue bringing updates for our listeners on this NGC. Maybe just reflections on day one, SK, and what we're expecting today.
Indeed, Cathy, good morning to you and all our listeners. And of course, it was an interesting day, Cathy. And, starting off with what's been happening outside, and what we saw was a protest by some ANC members who work for the party who haven't been paid. Got confirmation this morning from the national spokesperson, Mahlengi Bengu, as you said on Morning Live, that yes, they have now subsequently paid the workers, but not everyone has been paid. People like herself still haven't been paid. But then I put the question to her about what was said by one of the ladies that we spoke to, and she said that their provident funds have not been paid. And to which Mahlengi's response was, well, perhaps I need to get the TG because she doesn't have the further details to that. But interestingly, just as far as the mood is concerned here at Birchwood, it's a very somber mood. It's quite different from NGCs in years gone by. And I think it's reflective of where the African National Congress finds itself in 2025, given that this is, of course, a midterm review of the policies that the ANC had adopted at its last conference. That time is no more because from the ANC being the governing party, it is now in a government of national unity. So quite a lot has changed. But I must tell you, just reading through the base discussion documents, you can see that the issues that were raised previously are still relevant. And I'm joined by our politics senior reporter, Ntebo Mokobo, here in our makeshift studio, Cathy. Ntebo, thanks so much for coming through because it's another long walk from the one side to the other side. And of course, we've been cordoned off, kept away as far as possible from the delegates, Ntebo.
Good morning, SK, and good morning to the listeners. Yes, indeed. I mean, I hear you speaking about the mood. In fact, the mood is like it's like a suppressed mood. You would recall that, I mean, in 2005, to be precise, I think when they went to the NGC and subsequent to that, the 2010, we all knew who's going to be contesting for elections. I remember at some point the NGC is normally preceded by PGCs, the provincial general councils, and you would have 9 provinces, and already you would know that 5 provinces are begging this candidate, and 4 provinces are begging this candidate. And of course, the leagues, again, you would have the leagues, Veterans League, the Women's League, as well as the ANC Youth League supporting this candidate. But this time around, it's not there. So that's why I'm saying the conference is like a low key because of the suppressed mood in terms of the leadership contestation of the ANC.
But that has been deliberately done, and there was a strong message that went out to delegates coming to the NGC that we are not here to discuss succession.
Yes, that's what the Secretary General said, and that's what the NEC collective said, that uppermost in their mind is how are they going to deal with the forthcoming local government elections, because they know very well that they are on the back foot. And this is informed by a number of factors, not just the 2024 elections. If you look at the 2021, 2016, in fact, elections, the 2016 local government elections, already the ANC was losing. It lost in Tshwane, it lost, I think, in Johannesburg, and then one of the reasons it was because they were not listening to people who were saying do away with the this countries, the e-tolls, and people said if you have the e-tolls, then you will vote for yourself. And then they had a problem again in Tshwane about Tokodidiza and Sputla. They were on again. They were warned again that if you bring us someone that we don't know, expect that we're not going to vote for that person. And they lost elections. 2021 already, if you look at the outcome of the elections in 2021, although it was a local government elections, you would have told us that in fact the ANC has dipped below 50%. So that's why they're saying let's not talk about leadership. But they know very well that the problem is people want to hear who's going to be their next president,
And
despite the
those
fact
discussions will take place nonetheless.
they will take place anyway. And already some people are, you see, it's like people are behaving as if nothing has happened. There are many things that have happened, many stakes are against them. If you look at where the ANC is, I mean, I was saying to someone that, in fact, you've got a very historic president in the form of President Ramaphosa. There's the president who presided over the ANC that has gone under 50%, now 40%. Never happened in the history of the ANC post unbanning in 1994. You've got a president that presided over the expulsion of the Secretary General. You've got a president that presided over the expulsion of the ANC president, the recall of the president of the Republic in the form of Jacob Zuma. It's very historic. There are many things that happened. Whether for good or for bad, we don't know. The ANC rank and file are there to judge. But the president, the top 7 officials, the NWC, the NEC would be judged by all these factors. That you've got a president, you've lost election, but it seems it's business as usual. It can't be business as usual.
And that is a critical point. It cannot be business as usual because things have changed significantly since the last time the ANC met as a collective in a conference. But that being said, Ntebo, part of the issue here for me is even if you look at the discussion documents, firstly, having attended, you know, most of the NGCs but one, what do you make of the quality of the document, the discussion documents?
Well, I think it's I would say it's just a cut and paste. The only thing that you would change there would be like your dates and maybe the observing of protocol where you talk about the president and President Ramaphosa in this instance. But I mean everything that has been raised in those documents uh, has been raised before, and you ask yourself what had happened. I mean, if you look at, for instance, at why the ANC is seemingly losing elections, at some point the Secretary General then Gwede Mantashe said the problem is there is a distance between the motive forces and the leadership. And you've got the ANC leader that is so arrogant, the ANC leader that is so detached from reality, the ANC leader that doesn't see himself or herself as part of these communities. I mean, at some point, if you look at the last elections, there was a one candidate. I think now is the regional chairperson in Johannesburg, who together with her friends or his friends, they went into one of the townships and they were talking about they were eating fat cakes and they were eating amangina somewhere there, and then they said we
They're
only doing
supporting
this. They're only doing this for the sake of vote. So you can only think of these poor people if you want vote for them.
and
And this
supporting the
person,
township economy
yes,
as if that is what the township economy is essentially about.
essentially about.
But speaking of the economy, the ANC has in 2022 already at the elective conference in adopting the policies there, they had already acknowledged that they've conceded, Debo, that the macroeconomic policy has not delivered the expected growth or what is required for this economy to grow. But between then and now, things again have shifted with the implementation of the GNU. So where does it leave the ANC when it comes to the economy?
Well, you see, the one problem that I think the ANC is grappling with is this GNU, because now anything or the green shoots that the president is talking about, these green shoots are seen as a result of us having the GNU, and it leaves the ANC out. And people would say, in fact, we are better off under the GNU than under one political party, either called the ANC or the DA or whoever who governs the country alone. That on its own, I think it's a setback for the ANC, and the ANC should have focused on getting more numbers so that it corrects that when it goes to the next elections. But it seems they're still basking in this glory of the GNU being the best thing to have ever happened to South Africa, and of course the GNU is something that instills hope in the majority of South Africans. And some people are not looking at that way. They're saying, in fact, the DA is there and the DA is holding them accountable. So we rather have the DA. The DA must always be part of this GNU. And I think it's counterproductive for the ANC. If maybe for a lack of a better word, we can say it's counter-revolutionary for them, because this is a liberation movement that was set up to change the lives of the Lord for the better. But it seems people have lost now confidence. There is this public, a trust deficit in the ANC, and people are looking somewhere. And somewhere would be parties like DA and the rest of the others in the GNU.
And of course, it's going to be interesting to see how all of this pans out in next year's local government elections, less than a year away now, because we're looking at around November for the 2026 local government elections, from what we have been told so far. So it's going to be interesting to see how the parties, especially those who are part of the GNU, fare. Given Ntebo's point, Cathy, about whether they are able to extricate themselves from the collective label that is the GNU, or whether people will then punish certain parties and reward others because of that GNU. Cathy?
Yeah, Sakina, thank you. Thank you so much for that update that's coming through from the ANC's National General Council. Certainly, there's a lot of expectation, as Sakina and Deborah are talking about, just in terms of what happens next for the ANC, what happens next for this party in the eve of yet another election, a local government election. What is it, if anything, that they can do to try and re-inspire hope, re-inspire possibility, especially if they are to win the hearts and minds of South Africans in next year's elections? And coalition governments, well, the analysts say those are here to stay. What does that mean for the ANC, especially now that we are governed by a coalition at a national level? The thing about the local elections is that they always have the poorer outcomes in terms of numbers of people that show up to vote. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see how that plays out. So, Sakina will have more updates for us from the NGC throughout the rest of the morning. For now, we are going to change tack and have in studio. I know you haven't heard this voice in forever. So let's get into our finance segment.
Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
Brian Hirsch, do you even remember how you're supposed to position yourself in front of a microphone?
I must tell you, I got lost coming here, but I'm back. I'm back, and I know you're catching up. We haven't done this program for 7 or 8 weeks, so
Yeah.
we've got a 7.5 hour program for our listeners. Please, I hope you enjoy it. Program. We'll be here till 5 o'clock.
Yeah, Brian, there's so much that has happened, rightfully so, in the country, and that should really be affecting our finances. But I think maybe for the purpose of this broadcast, and also because it's our last broadcast together, just at a high level, let's take a look at where we are as we end of the year. And is there a reason to look forward to new possibility, hope for South Africans, particularly financially, right? Because we want to see things change, but we were grey listed this year. The interest rates were just so high. Do you think that we're ending off the year in a stronger position?
Cathy, many of our listeners will say, what's changed for me? But if we look at the macro sense and say, how does that then translate into what is good for our country? We came off the grey list. Now, let people understand the grey list. There are many institutions throughout the world who are run by trustees. And if any country, and we're not the only country that's been on the grey list, if any company gets grey listed, those institutions, those big endowments, the Princeton, all the big ones, the Oxford, the Cambridge, where they have billions, are not allowed to invest in a country that's grey listed. So we've come off the grey list after 2.5 years, and that is very encouraging. We're on the world stage. I mean, the G20 summit put South Africa on the world stage. Positive. Coming off the grey list. Positive. Interest rates, we've got another further 0.25%. We've had in the last 18 months 1.5% interest rates drop. I still am of the opinion they are not dropping fast enough. And that is evidenced by the number of people who are still taking money out of their pension funds on the two-pot system. And you've heard me say this before. These are individuals who can put bread on the table, can buy eggs and fruit for their family. They may still be in big debt and therefore they do, but they are going to their pension funds for money. What about the rest of the South Africans who can't do that? Government grants haven't gone up. When I was driving here, I heard your conversation with that particular caller and talking about inequalities and what's going on. I wish people could understand the word corruption. What does it mean in money? There's been so much corruption in South Africa over the last years, but how does that translate into a number? And how does that number translate to individuals who are getting pensions, getting grants, and tax? Because if that money had been in the system, all those levels would be down. But going further, the petrol price has decreased. I'm not sure what happens because the rand is trading around the 17. We'll hear in a moment what the rand's trading at. Oil price is good. I think we may eke another. Did we get a petrol price increase or decrease in December?
I think it was an increase, if I recall correctly.
So
Yeah.
and we with our investment upgrade, we will get money. What we need to do when foreigners invest in South Africa, and I'll finish off now, is they need to open businesses. They need to employ people. You who are sitting listening to our program, who unfortunately are unemployed, we need to find purposes for you. We need to find skills. There's nothing greater than to give someone a job. You give them back their dignity. Unfortunately, for the many people who listen to our program, pensioners, they are going to be very badly affected because of the interest rates drop. We'll carry on after the break.
We're going to continue with Brian shortly. For now, we'll take the latest news headlines and then we're back talking finance.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am Ondalambana and a very good morning. 28 pedestrians were arrested on the N14 freeway near Muldersdrift, west of Johannesburg yesterday during a Gauteng traffic police operation. 3 people have been killed in a shack fire in Blowie informal settlement in Kylie Chow, the Cape Flats, and about 323 Jeep Wrangler vehicles and 18,600 Kia model vehicles are being recalled. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this hour, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 05 to the dollar, 22 rand 71 to the pound, and 19 rand 85 to the euro. Markets in Asia were red across the board at the closing bell. The JCE mainly lower in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are currently trading weaker. Gold is trading at $4,179. Platinum, $1,640 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $62.46 a barrel.
Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
All right, so we continue talking finance with Brian Hirsch. It is our final segment with Brian for the year. So you will have an opportunity to engage with him later on in the program, as we always do. The number to dial for that, 086 000 2032. That's our studio line if you want to ask Brian any questions. 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, you can send us your WhatsApp voice notes and text messages on 0614 104 107. I often get shouted at by our listeners because I read through that number way too quickly. So the number WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. So Brian, then just picking up on that, we've had a lot of bad experiences, right? But I think just everything that you've touched on, the fact that we are now off the gray list, the fact that interest rates not coming down at a rate that we can all really jump up and be happy about, but certainly there are indications that we're looking at perhaps another interest rate decrease. Does this mean that we have something to be hopeful about
Yeah,
going into the new year?
I think that's the point. There's a better feel about South Africa. Many of us are feeling better about what's happening. I can tell you at big business, certainly much more positive, feeling that we can do a lot more. How that will translate, we also missed in our program the medium-term budget, which certainly did not indicate any increases in tax, and hopefully the tax collection is improved, also positive. Now that does translate to something more positive, because if you remember in the budget this year, we didn't increase taxes, but now neither did we increase what we call bracket creep, where because of inflation, your tax level, your salary goes up, but you don't pay more tax. We didn't do that. So if your salary went up, you ended up paying more tax. That's possible in our budget in February. We'll hear more. So what I'm trying to say is, I think there's a better positive feel. How that's translating down into the population is a different story. But if big business, government, and everyone's feeling a lot more positive, we start to think more positively rather than negatively. We've all had very negative thoughts. That means there's still many, many millions of people who are really battling, struggling, and can't see the way clear to how things are going to improve. But I'm just saying, at a macro level, it's certainly looking a lot better.
The festive season is upon us, Brian, and this is, one of those seasons where it, you take the good with the bad, right? The good is that there'll be some people that have been paid bonuses and will be thinking about, well, how should I actually be spending this bonus in light of just maybe the overall state of the economy? And then, of course, there are people who, despite the fact that they've worked very hard this year, might not actually get a bonus, and they then are also equally thinking about the burden, the pressure of the festive season. Because whether we like it or not, something about the festive season just brings with it an expectation to spend and to spend more. What is it about this time of the year that even if you've told yourself that I'm going to tighten my belt, you're going to spend 100 rand more than you planned to? Why is that the case, Brian?
Well, people like to treat themselves. And when you're feeling low and down, it's a great time to spend money, even though you may not have it. So let me share with you, if you are lucky enough, and I know there are many listeners who are not lucky enough to get a bonus, but if you are lucky to get a bonus, firstly, I'm going to give a general statement for everyone. Do not spend money this Xmas New Year period, if you don't have it. Don't spend money on your credit cards and think you'll pay it off. There are things happening in 2026 that many parents need to cater for. New school books, new school fees, new uniform, everything like that. So you've got to think carefully. And it's most important, and do not use credit cards to create debt. It is so easy. The interest rates you are paying are exorbitant. But if you have three choices. You can pay off debt and invest in yourself. You can spend it, or you can invest it in something for the long term. So let me deal firstly with the first one. Pay off the least expensive debt that you have. Just understand that when you get a bonus, there's tax. And the way tax works is the bonus that you get is added to all the other money you've earned in this financial year up to February 28th, 2026. And if you're earning between 20 and 30,000 a month, 26% of your bonus is going to tax. If you earn between 30 and 45, 31%. And if you're earning between 45 to 57, you're going to pay 36% in tax. That's gone. What you can do in future years is if you do get a bonus, talk to your employer by maybe deducting the additional tax on a monthly basis during the year, so that when you get your bonus, you get the full bonus in cash and you save that sort of money. But if you have debt on your credit card, you can pay off a lot. Just to let you know, if you pay 5,000 Rand off on your credit card, you will reduce your monthly payments from 1,800 to 1,350, a saving of 450. If you put that 10,000 Rand into your bond over a 20-year bond, I know I'm going to tell you this, you're going to save 208,000 Rand on your bond by putting 10,000 Rand away. If you decide I'm going to put it into my bond and I can then reduce my monthly payments, which is not a good idea, keep your monthly payments where they are. You can reduce your payments from 8,600 down to about 7,800. So very good way of investing. And also, if you invest in a retirement plan.
Okay, so Brian, before we move on to the retirement plan, let's just start. Credit card, mortgage, or paying rent 2 months in advance. Which one, if I'm looking at all of those options, right? Paying off my credit card, putting extra in my mortgage, maybe paying 2 months rent because we know it's December, so people often forget about January, but it will be here and you will still need to pay your bills. Or even paying off children's school fees with a bonus. If those are the options I have to make,
Okay.
which one would you say? What's the order of priorities
Okay.
here?
Okay. Order of priority is school fees.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming. You've got to pay the school fees.
Mm.
Got to educate our children. I'm not saying that's the best investment, pay off school fees. The last is do not 2 months rent. Either pay off your credit card where you're paying interest rates of anything between 14 to 17%, and then your bond where you may have your bond now at around about 7.5 to 8%, which is a lot healthier debt. It's not an unhealthy debt. So those are the areas I think. Then I talk about investing in yourself. You know, I see what's going on in the technology world with AI and what's going on. To keep up, staff members need to understand you need to improve yourself. You need to improve your quality. So maybe think about going on a course, putting that money to improving yourself so that in the years ahead, you've actually improved yourself, you're more marketable. Maybe even think about doing something on the side to earn money. So that's important. Health wise, gym. I think that, a positive person does a lot more than a person who's always tired. So start to look after yourself, look after your health. Look after your health. Why? Because if you're earning a salary and paying medical aid, you can maybe move in the years ahead to a lower plan. So there's a lot you can do in terms of health. If you're going to spend it, then maybe don't spend it all. Maybe spend 1/3 of what you're going to spend. But I repeat, do not get into further debt. People tend to use their credit card because it's so easy. And by the way, every store encourages it because they're doing sales and you're getting into more debt. So those are the things. And then lastly, if you want to save it, there's nothing better. Take 27.5% of your bonus, if it's not included in your pensionable salary, put it into a retirement annuity for the long term. It'll do you great harm. So split your bonus, 1/3 on pleasure, 1/3 on getting rid of the debt, and 1/3 in saving.
And in the midst of all of that, once you've done all of that with your bonus, don't use your credit card to book last minute flight tickets and accommodation for New Year's, where you decide that actually I'm going to go to Cape Town for New Year's. I'm going to go to Mozambique. Maputo is not that far from Johannesburg. I'm going to drive to Mozambique for New Year's. And there is something about the festive season that does create that impulse, I
Yeah.
feel, that is a lot more than what one would
Yeah.
ordinarily see throughout the year.
Now, let me add one thing about presents.
Yeah.
I know everyone likes to open presents. I mean, I get a present, I don't open it gently. The paper gets ripped. Children rip papers. In the UK, on the 26th of December, every store has massive sales. And yet people that are buying goods actually pay those higher prices. I'm suggesting to people, I
Yeah.
know it's not as exciting,
Yeah.
give a voucher. Give a voucher as a Christmas present, not as exciting. You can wrap it up in nice paper so that after Christmas, when the sales come on, you can get a lot more value for the buck that you're spending than the buck you're spending today.
It's the best time. It's the best time to go shop. But then we must wear our new Christmas clothes on Christmas Day, Brian.
Okay, yeah.
It only counts on Christmas Day. And if you don't know what Christmas clothes is about, then I don't have explanations for you.
Cathy, you know what Charlie Brown said to Snoopy? I've told you before. Charlie Brown said to Snoopy, you only live once. And
Exactly.
Snoopy said, you've forgotten.
Forgotten.
No, you only die once. You live every
Every
day.
day. This
So
is
I
true.
understand the new outfit, the new clothes. I understand the hairdo. Understand all this. That's what life's about. Life's about living. This is not a rehearsal for the next life.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is, just think carefully. Understand that it's not long. I mean, there are two things I'm going to tell you. Trump's only got 35 months left.
Sure.
Okay, he's no longer 4 years. He's now less than 3 years. And secondly, January comes, February comes, you don't get paid now, you get paid early in December, you don't get paid until the last week of January. You've got to see yourself through. Just remember, everything you've spent and you've created more debt has to get repaid.
Okay. Let me go to Pamandla in Gqeberha. Pamandla, good morning.
Dumela Mohlahlana. I'd like to say congratulations on your nation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And it's not babysitting with your own children, eh?
That's what I usually hear people saying about dads. Whenever they leave their kids home with their dads, they'll be like, no, the dad is babysitting. So I was stealing from that. But I hear you 100%, Pamandla.
Yeah, I'd like to say hello to Mr. First. Much for this year. I'd like to say this since I started listening to the show, I've increased my income. I think I earn like 4 times more money the more the small topic you keep giving us. Very much what you keep for.
Well, thank you very much for those kind comments. We try. It's part of the SAFM program. It's part of, Cathy's and her team every Tuesday morning when I'm here. But I do appreciate all the comments you make. Thank you.
Yeah, but my question is pretty much my thing that I'd like to connect probably sometime next like programs service and how people like where I'm from people tend to think because people depending on people they knowledge or things and need to structure a bit more like can't open a financial center without making sense. It doesn't really I understand it when I'm passed away, but if you spoke to somebody like social financial thing like major so
You know,
yeah, insurance where
okay.
they can have
So let me say this to you. Everyone's rand is important to them. And you can never compare someone who earns X or someone who earns X plus. So everyone's circumstances are different. However little money you've got to spare, then how you invest it. Let me say this to you. I filmed for a full day a strong course of I think of 17 modules that if you want to contact my office, I don't have the details here, but I filmed with a company called Thriver. It's on their website. It's on our website. If anyone wants to know, and you contact my office on www. What's it? I've even forgotten it.
Is it
BH,
not?
yeah.
BHCA,
There you are, I've been
Brian.
on for 8 weeks. www.bhca. You can pick it up. It's a module for our listeners to maybe pick up what they want. They can pick the different segment. I know sat there and stood there, and I did all the things that I had in my books previously, and I think you may find that useful. But I'd like to thank you for your very fine comments, and it's absolutely fantastic that SAFM allow this program to go. Next year will be 32 years.
Right. That pretty appreciate
Thank you.
Financial empowerment is the future. Very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So Spamanga, that recommendation then is not lost on us. All right, we'll note it down, and then we'll see how we can bring that into the programming going into the new year. All right, Pamanda. He says we need to do a little bit more on the Financial Services Act and getting people to understand part of the frameworks around that, especially, more and more. One of the things that the police have been speaking about an increase is in insurance-related fraud.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Increase of murder, the increase of the murder rate is in relation to insurance-related
Yeah,
fraud.
it's insurance-related fraud, medical aid-related fraud. I mean, at least 1% of the increase in cost of medical aid is due to fraud. The companies are trying to do a lot more, but they are, and we'll talk more about it, how people can go onto this course. But www.bhca.co.za, and we can direct you to where the program is under the Thriver website.
All right. Salomani, you're calling us from Joburton. Good morning.
Morning, okay. Good morning, Robin. Look, what was you pay off your
Salomani, just try walk around a bit for us. That connection is not great, but continue and let's see if it gets any stronger.
you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you pay off your property, right? At 20 years and whatever. My issue with SARS is if you want to transfer your property to your company name, so you also you want to now take that property out of your name into your company name. Why do they want you to pay transfer costs of like the value of your property? The property is very expensive. And then the cost. Why does SARS want you to do that? It's your company, your property. Why do I still have to pay money to transfer the property, no name to my company? And on top of that, SARS also can currently punish you if your valuation of the property wasn't done correctly, and even take you more. I'm trying to find the rationale of why you as SARS would want to want a person to pay for transfer cost lawyers to transfer something to your own to your own company from your own name.
So let me answer that question. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't quote verbatim the act. But any property that is transferred from one person to another, where it be an individual, other than death, we'll talk about death at the moment, but from one entity to another is subject to transfer duties. This is not unique to South Africa. This is unique globally, and it's been written into the act. I can't tell you why, but it avoids people transferring properties from one name to a trust to avoid future death duties and all the things that go with it. But let me make this comment. Why would you want to transfer a property in your name? Because you get the first 2 million rand free of capital gains tax into a business when firstly you lose that 2 million. And as you said, if you valued your property at X and you're selling it at Y and the amount is above 2 million, you are going to pay capital gains tax. Again, written into the act. I mean, you're saying to me, why have they done it? I can't give you that explanation other than it's in the act and it's got to be paid. But I would say to anyone listening to this program, think very carefully before you transfer your residential property into a company or trust. Understand why you're doing it, because you lose out on certain benefits. And as you say, there are tax implications, capital gains tax implications. So it's not just a simple, why would you want to transfer a property from your name into a business, Salome?
because Brian, you're trying to build up a portfolio, right? So you've paid off this property. Now you register it under transfer to a company name so that I can now move out, buy another property, maybe in my name, of course, rent out this other one, and then that will obviously build my company's portfolio. So I want to rent with the property and transferred so that the taxman, because if I rent it out and it's still in my name, the SARS is going to see it as an income, and then I'll be taxed more. Whereas if it's via the company, they'll tax it the rate of companies, whatever. So I just don't want to be involved in a rental income in my name.
Okay, look, everyone's circumstances are different. And as you say, you now change the dynamics. You're saying, I want to create some investment properties. So I want to create a different profile in my company where my company. But remember, your profile and your company's profile are very interlinked because you as an individual can still sign surety on behalf of your company without doing the transfer. I understand the next property you want to buy, you want to use the property that may be in is no longer your residential property, but understand you lose that 2 million rand tax capital gains tax free amount. It's substantial, 2 million. I mean, if you think about 2 million, you're talking about anything between a maximum of 360,000 and probably a minimum of somewhere in the order of 90,000. So understand. Look, I think it's a bigger discussion. I'll tell you what I suggest. Contact me on www.bhca.co.za. I'll contact you in the new year and we can have a longer chat about that. And if I feel that it's appropriate when I deal with questions at the end of each month that callers have called in, I'll share it with other listeners.
Brian and Saruman, maybe before you go, Brian, in a situation like this, what is better? Would it have been better if Salomon had opened up a trust and then bought the property
No.
in the name of the trust?
No.
Okay.
No. The only reason you would do that is if you want to protect your assets against creditors. You don't want having to have to do anything in the event of your death because it's already in a trust, and maybe you've got younger children who can't inherit. But there's no other reason than that. Bigger discussion, which I think we could maybe deal on a program, the benefits of a trust, why you would do certain things in a trust and why you wouldn't do others. It's a good subject for the new year.
Okay. All right. Let's take some of the WhatsApp voice notes you're sending through.
Good morning, Cathy and Brian. Thanks for a great show as always. Quick question for Brian. Bit of advice there, sir. I am in a fortunate position where I have no current debt, property and vehicles and everything paid off. Of course, this leaves me in a situation now where I will probably have I assume, a poor credit rating, or credit score. I actually haven't checked it, but more than a year with no debt. When it comes to buying another property or something like that, where I need to look to financial institutions for funds, um, what is the best way to increase your credit score other than going and opening unnecessary accounts? What is one way that the banks will look at lending money again? For instance, if we need to buy another property, what is the easiest or the best way that we can increase the credit score without incurring unnecessary debt? A little bit of advice there, if you don't mind. Thank you.
It's an amazing situation that people who have created wealth, who don't have debt, can't get a credit score. Unbelievable. I just think the system's also about face, excuse my expression, but it doesn't make sense. But you're absolutely right. But the way you can do it, look, I know it's ridiculous, but you can. And what I've suggested to people, firstly, you've obviously got a cell phone. And your cell phone, you've got, I don't know how you buy and purchase each time that you need um, uh, uh, um, to make calls. Are you online or you've got a account? You have to create some. You have to create some accounts. It's essential. They ask for that information, and I've had many callers who've said to me, "I can't understand. I can't get credit because I don't owe any money." I don't know if you've got a credit card, and I would imagine you do, and you probably pay it off in full. That's one account. Your cell phone is another. Go and open up one or two store accounts. You can use them and then pay in full again, so that when they ask the store, are you a good payer? And the answer will be yes. You have to. But I tell you, I do have in my office, and I will also deal with this in the new year, how you get a better credit score. So those are two subjects I'll deal with early in the year. We'll recap in the first program when I'm back on the 11th or 12th. We'll recap on the investment scene and what's happened come the end of the year. And then the next two programs, we'll deal with trusts and I'll deal with credit rating. Thank you very much for your call.
Okay, let's take a few more voice notes, Brian, on the festive season and you
Good
dampening
morning,
everybody's mood.
Kathy, and to Brian as well. You asked the question, what is it about festive? Just a simple thing. Ka Sepedi re leboga mmele. We are thanking our bodies for all the hardships throughout the year. So we will spend, we will worry when it comes to January.
I hear you, and you're not alone. You're not alone. I've been giving lessons and giving suggestions to people, but you're talking to the converted. I mean, for the unconverted.
You will need to counsel yourself
Yeah,
after the session,
yeah.
Brian.
Thank you.
Morning, Kathy. Kathy, I just think Brian is a spoiler. He's just spoiling everyone's fun. Thanks. Have a good one.
I'm not spoiling your fun. Go and spend. I'm just warning you of the consequences. Every action you take has consequences. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to share. And if I only get through to 5% of people, I've done a good job this morning.
Brian, we're going to take just one last voice note and then we'll get into concluding this segment of the show.
Hi, good morning, Katie and Brian. Regarding the gentleman who just called about not having a good credit score because they don't have debt, I had the similar situation. I spoke to you, Brian, quite a while back. What I did was I took on a credit card and my credit score shot up. And I'm using that credit card, sparingly here and there because I don't really need it, but I need it for my credit score. Perhaps the gentleman can look into that.
Yeah. And also, you are paying your credit card off in full every month.
She's on the WhatsApp.
Oh, well, as long as you pay your credit card in full, you're not incurring interest. However, if you draw cash out of your credit card, that's high rate of interest.
Brian, so tell me at least one thing that you're going to be doing that involves reckless spending. I know you like nice cars. Are you buying yourself a nice fancy car?
Not at all. I am doing a bit reckless. I am buying my kids earphones for Christmas. I hope they're not listening. They from Apple. They are rather expensive, and but I am doing that as a special because as your kids get older, in the years gone past, they opened 10 parcels of which a lot of them were nothing. So I am doing a little bit. I am doing a little bit of spending. I'm going on holiday, which I'm looking forward to.
And I know you're spending the most on your grandkids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's it about? Yeah.
Brian is such a good grandpa. In his office, his wall, trust me, you cannot see the paint on his wall because all of his wall is covered up in pictures of him and his grandchildren. Maybe one or two pictures of his children, but his grandchildren are all over that
Kathy,
office.
Don't leave out my wife.
Yes, of course.
Oh God, I've got to go home.
Brian, have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. We love you so much.
Thank you.
And we appreciate all of the wealth and the knowledge that you share with us on a Tuesday.
Well, thank you to you. Thank you to everyone in the studio, Kanya, Lebo, all our controllers, all the people who make the program so easy for me. You make the program so easy, Kathy. I look forward to years ahead of you with you still. And I wish all our listeners and everyone to participate in the show a healthy and a happy new year. And I wish you all this. And just lastly, please drive carefully.
Absolutely. Brian Hirsch, thank you so much. Yeah, and if you're wondering, did Brian bring me anything? Of course, Brian always brings me chocolate, right? So you've got to rest assured, whether it's Easter, whether it's Christmas, whether it's birthday, or just even for no reason. You see, he spoils me endlessly. Brian Hirsch, have a wonderful festive season.
Thank you, Kathy, and a big congratulations to you and your team on the top stories. Pedestrians arrested during a Gauteng traffic operation, and Jeep Wrangler and Kia various models recalled. For SFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. 28 pedestrians were arrested on the N14 freeway near Muldersdrift, west of Johannesburg, yesterday during a Gauteng traffic police operation. The festive season enforcement plan is in full swing, targeting lawlessness on the roads. Gauteng police spokesperson Silo Marimane says pedestrians on freeways are a major crash risk that contributes to road fatalities.
We will continue to conduct this kind of operation throughout the festive period and beyond to save lives. It remains illegal in terms of the law for a pedestrian to be on a freeway. We are therefore issuing a stern warning to road users that no form of lawlessness will be tolerated during this festive period.
The body of a 16-year-old boy has been retrieved from the Athlone Dam by the police search and rescue team in Middelburg, Mpumalanga. Mafuro Washesanda, who is a foreign national, allegedly went missing in the dam whilst he was swimming with 5 other boys between the ages of 13 to 16. According to the police report, the deceased struggled to swim after telling his friend he could swim. Mufaro had visited his uncle in the area. Provincial Police spokesperson Jabu Ndubane says they're currently investigating an inquest case. 3 people have been killed in a shack fire in Blowy informal settlement in Kali, Chandler Flats. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says the bodies of the deceased were found in the debris after the fire services extinguished the blaze. He says an inquest has been opened and they're probing the cause of the fire. About 323 Jeep Wrangler vehicles and 18,600 Kia model vehicles are being recalled. The National Consumer Commission has issued an urgent recall notice for the Jeep Wrangler that was sold in 2016 and discontinued in 2018. Due to airbag failures and the Kia's brake malfunctions drive that was sold between 2009 and 2015. The NCC spokesperson Peton Daba has urged the drivers of the affected vehicles to ensure they take their vehicles for a check to minimize the risk of potential accidents.
We request the drivers of the following vehicles: Kia Sportage SL and KM, Kia Sorento XM, Kia Optima TF, Cerato TD, as well as Kia Soul AM to immediately contact their Kia approved dealerships to ensure that their vehicles are checked. According to the manufacturer, they have discovered that an ABS fuse requires a replacement. On the other hand, Stellantis South Africa informed the NCC that they are recalling the Jeep Wranglers. According to Stellantis South Africa, the dust inside the truck spring could compromise airbag circuits.
Cambodia's defense ministry says 6 Cambodian civilians have now been killed since a renewed flare-up of hostilities with Thailand started yesterday. Thailand said earlier that 2 of its soldiers had died. The BBC's Panissa Amocha has the details.
Military operations along with information operations from both countries has been fierce since Sunday. What we are seeing so far is both countries accusing each other from the beginning of these new confrontations along the way of who launched it first, and especially we believe that people of both countries, both on the public side and on the government side, want to appear as they are not the one who launched the first attack in the international public eye.
Recapping the top story, 28 pedestrians were arrested on the N14 freeway near Muldersdrift, west of Johannesburg, yesterday during a Gauteng traffic police operation. The festive season enforcement plan is in full swing, targeting lawlessness on the roads. I'm Ondelambana for SFM News. Headlines at 11:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
We're now going to classify gender-based violence and femicide as a crisis.
This 16 days of activism, SAFM stands firm under the theme Letsema, men, women, boys and girls working together to end gender-based violence and femicide. Together, we can break the silence. Together, we can protect our communities. Speak out, report it, take action. SAFM says no to gender-based violence. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. SAFM's award-winning drama department presents to you the radio drama series, Skyline.
Press to cockpit medical emergency now.
Cabin crew to your stations.
where the skies promise adventure, but behind the cabin doors, untold secrets are found.
Signing off on cheap parts they installed like it's nothing.
Catch the radio drama series every Saturday at 9 p.m. on SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
Kathy, if you can't run your own house, how can you run somebody else's house? If you can't pay your own workers, if the ANC can't pay its own workers and run its house properly, how can they run South Africa? And it's no wonder things are like this in South Africa, because the ANC's own house is messed up. The ANC's own house is in ruins. And no wonder South Africa is in ruins because of the ANC. We need a new party in power in Cape Town.
Morning, Kathy and SAFM listeners. Kathy, there is no accountability in this country. That's the only problem we are facing at the moment. So these people must be charged for not reading. But we know nothing will happen. Moroccan Gologwan.
Morning, Kathy. Why can't we just call this government what it is? It's just the government. It's just the coalition government, and we stop calling it the GNU, because the only GNU, the genuine GNU that we had was in 1994. This is just a coalition government. I think we really are abusing the term, and actually is denial of reality. This is just a coalition government. It's not a government of national unity. Whether it's called like that or not, it's just far from reality. They were here. Thanks.
Morning is Sister Kathy. Sister Kathy, it's not only Batoy alone or Mashas. The minister himself, Minister Mtuno, the whole minister, took a decision based on costs for the PKT without comparing that team with other teams, with other task teams. He just took a decision. And he admits he didn't compare, he didn't check, he didn't assess, he didn't consult. It's not Shamila Batoy alone. The whole minister did the same thing. We are used to that. Anonymous.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, 10 after 11 o'clock. It's the third and final hour of the Talking Point. And coming up in this hour, we are going to be giving a snapshot of what is happening at the ANC's National General Council. And then after that, we're going to be in conversation with Professor Mark Swilling, who's a commissioner at the National Planning Commission. And it's on the latest research that he, alongside another colleague, have conducted. And it's a report around the transformation of South Africa's monetary architecture. And it really looks into the extent to which transformation has or has not happened within our economic landscape and what it is that we need to be doing to change the state of affairs. So that conversation is going to be coming to you shortly. But let me then take you to the east of Johannesburg, where my colleague Sakina Kamwendo is with the rest of the team, Sakina. And this is, of course, coverage of the ANC's 5th National General Council. Quite a quiet affair in terms of what you as the media, Sakina, get to see, get to hear, and get to be part of. The NGC is sometimes one of those frustrating conferences to cover because you're shown where to go, you're shown who you must speak to, when you know that the real story is somewhere unfolding behind closed doors. And unless you can be a fly on the wall during the lunch break, Sakina, and manage to intercept those delegates, you have to work your sources to know what's going on the inside.
Absolutely, Kathy. And you're right. NGCs do tend to be like that. But, just picking up on that conversation with Ntebo Mokobo earlier, in terms of the subdued nature of this particular NGC, it really is. It's a different atmosphere because if you look at NGCs of the past, there was a lot more, vibrancy about, and there was a lot more to pick up on, people to speak to, as people would be milling around, etc. But I think, of course, it is deliberate to keep the media away from the delegates, given how sensitive some of these issues may be for the African National Congress. But Kathy, I'm joined by our senior politics reporter, Samkele Maseko. You speak about working the context. This is the man. He's the one that we send. He will go and find out what needs to be known. Sam, you laugh, but it is true. And so, just in terms of what has been going on, because literally it's like pulling teeth here.
What is essentially happening is you've got a organization that that has to undergo transformation, and that transformation is no longer like yesteryear. For the first time since the dawn of democracy, there is no clear successor in the ANC at its midterm review of when a president who's on his second term is now handing over. Many of those delegates in there, they don't know who is at the forefront, spearheading at the leadership, who's leading the pack of the leadership contestation. Hence the subduedness, hence the glorification and singing about the incumbent SG after his midterm organizational report, which was very in depth, very good, if one may say, particularly mirroring South Africa where it's at and where the ANC is at, and the political overview the report by the president, which was pretty much a State of the Nation address with a little bit of bones here and there of politics, of intra-party issues. They are more outward looking than inward looking. And that is one of the issues that makes this National General Council so subdued, not heavily enthusiastic about it, because they are more dogged in looking at the balance of forces globally, balance of forces against South Africa at this point in time, particularly after that ICJK, South Africa's fight with the United States of America, a successful G20. So it's more about state than the party today, and also looking at the National Democratic Revolution, the NDR, and the motive forces of where are they with South Africans when it comes to the liberation of South Africans with the basic necessities of life, which speaks to the bread and butter issues of the core face of service delivery.
And just going to the question about succession, as you say, usually a president in his second term is seen as yesterday's man. And we saw not too long ago at one of the NGCs, the end of one of the NEC meetings, where we saw the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, very boldly, he was seriously emboldened and coming out and saying, well, those who feel like they want to, contest me must speak up.
He's a man who's emboldened. He's a man who's in charge. He's a man who's in the driver's seat. He's a man who's relatively uncontested in the organization, but those who are contesting him are his former allies, whom have lost grip of their own provinces. I won't mention their names because they denied it yesterday in the interviews that
What
we were
did
doing.
they deny? That they were
That they are plotting.
Oh, okay.
That they are plotting. Yeah, but where they smoke, there's always fire.
And we know there certainly is. Perhaps a question of people, biding their time at this point.
People are biding their time at this point in time, but for the first time, the ANC is at a ZR Mahabane moment. Historically, ZR Mahabane was fetched from nowhere to come and be the president of the African National
Third way.
The third way. The third way that you've always spoken about, that has always existed in the ANC. But in yesteryears, that third way has not worked in the presidency of the African National Congress, but it has worked with the Secretary General. There was Phumulo Moswale, there was Mtumseni Ntuli. 45 days before the conference of the ANC, Mbalula Figile in Saudi Arabia with the president of the African National Congress in 2022. When he comes back into the country, there's FM 20, there's FM 2022, FM 22 at the time. That third way worked. Will it work this time around? It does certainly look like there are rumblings for such, but there is no face to it.
And therefore, it makes it difficult for anyone else to nail their colors to the mast, because I think people are also waiting to see who might I be going up against.
People are weighing up those particular options. I saw an article by Business Day of Dr. Hossein Zoramokhupa. I said to myself, I'm like, intellectually good, ideologically here and there, a bit sound, support base wise, where is it going to come from?
And those are the questions. And then that goes for every single candidate who may think about throwing their hat in the ring. But people are also asking the question, Samkele, about what about the tradition that the deputy president would naturally be the next in line?
The last time we heard about that tradition was with Cyril Ramaphosa ascending after taking over from Jacob Zuma. After that, Didi Mabuza contested Cyril, and now it seems to be thrown out the window. No one is raising that particular issue of the unwritten tradition of the DP taking over, mainly because the ANC is under 50%.
And that under 50% is an interesting space as well, because not forgetting that it is under the incumbent that the ANC moved to below 50% in their electoral fortunes. And yet it doesn't seem to have weakened him much. How are we to interrogate, how are we to assess and read that situation? If we look at what happened in Gauteng, if we look at what happened in KZN and how the provincial leadership in those provinces were punished, so to speak, for underperformance in last year's general election, my question was always, what about the top? Why didn't that move to national?
The top won't be affected because the top was fighting in what they perceive a former president who still wanted to rule from the grave, who did not want his successor. But the problem of KwaZulu-Natal, the provincial leadership underestimated the figure they were up against. The ANC historical documents after the 2009 elections, there was a document written by the head of organizing at the time, Mtumseni Ntuli, of the Umfowethu syndrome. People in northern KwaZulu-Natal and in the Midlands and in the South Coast were voting for the ANC for Umfowabo. Umfowabo meaning people were voting for Jacob Zuma, not for the ANC. The ANC grew up by about 1.6 million votes in KZN under Zuma. Those are the same votes Zuma came to fetch.
And it was clearly mirrored in those election results. Even the EFF, in terms of what they had gained and then lost in last year's general election, you could clearly see, as you say, he came to fetch his votes. But going into next year's local government elections, how strong a factor is that going to be, given how Mkhonto Wesizwe has fared so far?
Next year's elections are going to be very critical because the ANC is still going to go the downward spiral because they don't represent the aspirations of the people at a local level. ANC councillors are aloof. They don't stay in their communities, and it gives way for the MK party because their people are still not yet economically liberated who are within the MK party at a grassroots level, as opposed to a branch ANC person who's got access to the head of procurement in a municipality to say, can you please award this company and that company so that I can be able to get my cut and continue with my life. That is where the ANC is at. That is where the MK party is not at this point in time. Those are the same sins of incumbency that are facing the economic freedom fighters. Ekurhuleni, a classic case, an example. Other municipalities such as Johannesburg, Mogale City, so on and so forth. The same problem John Steenhuisen is now faced with within the DA. But the MK party is self-mutilating unprovoked in a corner.
To borrow a phrase.
Sorry to borrow that phrase by the DA, by Professor Somato Fikeni. Yes. So The MK party is self-mutilating unprovoked in a corner. The DA is self-mutilating in a corner unprovoked because it's enjoying the largesse of the state. The ANC finds itself in ICU and can't get itself out because it's still faced with the ghost of Jacob Zuma, who's obliterated them in predominantly Zulu speaking areas.
So it's going to be interesting. And of course, looking at what is happening here at Birchwood today. So we know that there are commissions that are currently underway. And maybe just to talk about what it is that they are discussing. And Cathy, to the listeners, what we will be able to do is perhaps by tomorrow, because it all depends on how long these deliberations go on for and just how robust they are. We know in the past where we've sat and waited well after midnight for briefing sessions after these commissions. But it's going to be interesting to see what they come back with. So, what are they discussing today, Sam?
Today, they're discussing the National Democratic Revolution and the balance of forces. It's more focused on international relations and the motive forces of where South Africa is at this point in time. Who are South Africa's allies? Who are South Africa's enemies? Who can South Africa move to work with? I know the Northwest Province earlier on, when we were on Morning Live, they had their own caucus addressed by their Provincial Secretary Louis de Morello and the Provincial Chair Nonoma Loyi. They are very interested, particularly on the trade issues and the mineral resources provinces, the SLPs, the social labor plans of provinces, and also how minerals can uplift communities. Because at this point in time, the minerals chamber and the chamber of mines is very much interested with what is happening in this National General Council,
especially post the G20 resolution.
especially after the G20 resolutions and leveraging on African minerals. And this is where the ANC at this point in time and their President Ramaphosa, becomes very dangerous and lethal with Gwede Mantashe and Barbara Creecy, because that is where the economy of South Africa is going to be anchored going forward, as just opposed with tourism, manufacturing, and other sectors.
With regard to the rights for exploration, mining rights, and of course, Barbara Creecy with regard to
the pipelines
and environmental approval for the transport sector. But she also comes from the environmental portfolio, where they are also instrumental in terms of whether companies get to mine or not.
That is essentially what bottles down to this National General Council when it comes to the economic transformation and also beneficiation. And it's a debate they are deliberately not wanting to highlight because it is being played on the down low, and it will adamantly be focused in the battle of forces and the NDR in the commissions today. I know the president of the ANC is and has been in the commissions since 9 o'clock in the morning.
And the economy with regard to radical economic transformation and what it looks like in 2025. All right, so, Cathy, you know, Sam and I will go on forever. So let's disabuse you of this discussion and hand it back to you, Cathy.
SK, I can hear you guys are even finishing each other's sentences there, you know. You're completing each other's
I
thoughts.
stay away from this
And I'm
guy.
just like, yo, how intertwined is the political discourse here at the NGC? But before you both go there, you know, this dare of President Cyril Ramaphosa to others to say, well, if you want to come out to contest me, do it so don't be in the shadows. Do you think it puts an end to this conversation, or are we likely to see it come up and remerge again later on in the week?
No, it doesn't put an end to the conversation. And if anything, the conversations are happening. Is that?
The conversations are happening. Caucuses are happening. Regional conferences are taking place. Provincial conferences are taking place. The first test for me was Limpopo. When Cyril Ramaphosa's allies won all of the regional conferences in Limpopo, and the Bubesi Stan Matabata was subdued and tamed, and the teeth taken out of the lion, that is when I realized that Cyril Ramaphosa is planning his successor and is planning his exit.
Which is why the name of Popi Ramathuba has also been mentioned, Kathy. There are conversations taking place.
Things are shaping up.
Hey.
Discussions are taking place. Provincial chairpersons who are in charge, like Oscar Mabuyane, Zamani So, Mandla Ndlovu, are firmly in charge of their provinces. You just need Limpopo to go to their provincial conference. Once Limpopo is done, you have 60% of conference already. You just need to divide the rest.
And remember, you're hearing the rumblings of pushing for a female president. And don't discard.
The issue about Togo, go to when the ANC made a mistake. They posted a video of the president after the voting of the NWC in the last meeting to add 2 more females. It was Kusela Tiko and it was Togo Titiza. The president said, we are adding intellectual prowess, tapped Kusela. Then looked at Togo Titiza. We are adding stature, we are adding respect. The main word was stature. And respect. And for me, that gave it away.
So it's going to be interesting because it's not going to be easy, though, Sam and Kathy, for that third way to emerge, if it will, because the patronage networks are so strong and they are so intertwined. It's going to be very difficult, but it's not impossible.
All right.
It's going to be a conference of provinces, and national leaders are actually going to have very minimal influence, except 2 or 3 in the officials. The provinces are emboldened, and provinces that won the elections.
Those who are still ANC run.
Yep.
They will come into their own.
Yeah.
Kathy, as I said, we could be here all day.
Sakina, you and Sam are cracking me right now. And I know I'm not the only one to pick up on it. Do you hear how they finish each other saying, it's as if you guys are sharing the screenshots from the WhatsApp groups, like, oh, did you get this one as well? Did you see this one? Did you see? Okay, let me let you go, team. Let me let you go. Of course, we'll have more updates from our team down in Boksburg at the ANC's 5th National General Council. Okay, so moving slightly away from that, coming up shortly, I'm going to introduce Professor Mark Swilling, and we're going to be talking about this report that they have put together, and it really looks at South Africa's monetary infrastructure, right? And part of the transformation, rather, of South Africa's monetary architecture from 1983 to 2024. And it's a report to try and inform the planning of the National Planning Commission, especially in as far as what are the steps that need to be taken to be dealing with the big questions that our country is facing. And amongst those is this question of inequality. So Professor Swilling is going to be joining us shortly. Before he does, let me take you over to the news desk for the latest news update.
Thank you, Kathy. On the news headlines, the ANC says talks with the National Health, Education and Allied Workers Union are underway to rectify the non-payment of staff salaries. 28 pedestrians were arrested on the N14 freeway near Muldersdrift, west of Johannesburg yesterday during a Gauteng traffic police operation. And Gauteng motorists have been urged to avoid the R500 road in Carltonville, west of Johannesburg, due to a sinkhole that continues to collapse. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Yo, December is here. Festive mode on.
And this year it's louder. AFCON 2025 kicks off 21 December and runs until 18 January 2026.
We're catching every match with SABC Sport, the official broadcaster.
At home, SABC2 is the home of AFCON. That TV is locked. No channel hopping.
On the move, our favorite SABC radio stations keep us in the game.
And while we drive, we stream it all on SABC Plus. No missing a moment.
This festive season, AFCON lives on SABC. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of AFCON 2025. It's game on everywhere.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times.
Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m., as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. Professor Mark Swilling is a commissioner at the National Planning Commission and also professor of sustainable development in the Center for Sustainability Transitions in the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences at the University of Stellenbosch. Quite a mouthful, Prof. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. This recent report that you have penned alongside one of your colleagues, I think, is a really important one that reflects on the country's monetary architecture. It sounds quite complex as a theme, and I want you to really try and demystify it for me and for the rest of the SAFM community. When we talk about monetary architecture, what is included in that? What are we referencing, Prof?
We are essentially referencing the total financial system of South Africa. So we are used to talking about the economy, but that needs to be distinguished from the financial system. Financial system refers to all the financial systems that are interconnected with one another in order to facilitate the flow of finance through our economy. So the South African Reserve Bank, which is the banker of the commercial banks, the commercial banks which provide loans to government, to households, to businesses, the pension funds which invest, and so on and so forth. Those are the financial institutions, and they enable the flow of finance. If the flow of finance stops, the economy collapses.
So, in this web of these institutions, right, that form part of the monetary architecture, your study was to do what? What were you looking at from 1983 right through to 2024?
Basically, the rationale for the project, in other words, why we did it, was because as the coordinator of the infrastructure team, National Planning Commission, my job was to coordinate teams of researchers that would investigate how much money is needed in order for us to realize our energy goals. In other words, net zero and energy security for all at affordable prices. Our water goal, water security goal, digital migration into the 21st century so that all have access and at affordable rates to the internet and so on, as well as logistics. And we the inevitable, as you can imagine, result of that research, which is mainly funded by the Development Bank of Southern Africa, was that we need to spend a lot more money than we currently do, roughly around 150 billion rand per annum extra, over and above what we currently spend on OPEX, in order to achieve our goals. So the question is, where's that money going to come from? Can we imagine Enoch Godongwana saying, I'm going to raise taxes, I'm going to borrow more and spend more? No, that's not going to happen. Can you imagine the governor of the Reserve Bank saying, print money? It's easy. No, that's not going to happen. So where's the money going to come from? And so we said, okay, let's analyze our South African financial system in order to determine, well, where is the money in the South African economy? Who controls the bulk of capital in the South African system, and are they allocating that money in a way that aligns with our goals as a nation? So that's why we did the study. And on the whole, we came to the conclusion that there's plenty of money available in the South African financial system. It's just not being allocated appropriately.
If we are to begin firstly with understanding the flaws of the monetary architecture that you have highlighted, the historical flaws, because I think it's important for us to reflect on that to fully understand why then the continuation of this architecture embeds within it issues such as the lack of transformation, the high levels of inequality. So, what is wrong effectively with what we have inherited in a post democratic dispensation?
Yes. Well, so yes, it goes back to your previous question. What we did was analyze the evolution of the financial system from the mid 80s through to the mid 90s, through to 2014, through to 2024. Four snapshots in order to demonstrate to readers how the financial system has evolved. And to answer your question directly, our financial system is really rooted in in its apartheid past. And in 1994, some fundamental decisions were made, such as setting up an national treasury, formalizing the role of the Reserve Bank, but also freeing up the financial system in a way which did not fundamentally transform the role of the financial system as a system that uh, enables the transfer of wealth into the pockets of the richest household and people in society. So we have one of the most unequal societies in the world as a result. 35,000 individuals, their wealth is equal to twice the wealth of the bottom 90% of South Africa. And the bottom 50% of South Africa are overall getting poorer rather than wealthier. And so this is the result of a financial system that not fundamentally transformed in a way that could result in much greater inclusion. For example, of small and medium enterprises who create more jobs and contribute more value add to the economy than large corporations. But policy tends to favor the large corporations.
Sure. I'm really interested in some of your choice of words, Prof. You talk about a financial system that didn't enable a transfer of wealth post democracy. And often when we think about the the the, the idea of wealth transfers, it's almost like a swear word, right? Because linked to that would also be transformation. Is the idea that money just simply has to be taken away from some people and be given to others that are seen as being from disadvantaged groups, i.e., is this about taking money away from white people and giving it to black people to equal the playing field? Or is it something deeper that is going on economically that enables those that have been previously able to access economic opportunity to continue doing so, but also to the marginalization of others?
Well, I think it's a lot more complex than that. And we need to go beyond those kind of ideological constructs. Let me give you an example. So the pension funds were rather small before 1994. Now, our pool of pension money is the 16th largest pool of pension money in the world, larger than India, larger than France, larger than Spain, larger than Chile. So there's been a massive expansion in the way in which middle and upper income households have been saving money via pension funds. So then the next question should be, well, what have the pension funds been doing with that money? So if what we show is that actually a very small amount of that pension money goes into investments in what is called gross fixed capital formation, which is fixed assets like water systems, like energy systems, like roads, but also productive factories and expansion of farms. If more and more of those pension fund monies, those savings, if you like, had been invested in productive assets and infrastructure which would grow the economy and also generate the returns that pensioners need, it would have also created a lot more jobs and a lot more livelihoods and therefore much greater inclusion. But unfortunately, the bulk of pension money doesn't get invested in the real economy. It gets reinvested in the financial system. In other words, you make money out of money by investing in money. And that is not a good way to run a financial system. And another example would be the banks lend money overwhelmingly to governments and big corporations. They do not lend significant amounts of money to the businesses that create the most jobs and most value add, which are small and medium enterprises. They don't significantly invest uh, because those small and medium enterprises are cash starved. If they had more cash and could borrow more money and could expand their businesses, they would create a lot more jobs. There'd be more inclusion. 60% of those jobs are earned by black people. So I'm just giving you examples to show the complexity of the financial system. So it's not just a case of the Minister of Finance waking up one morning and saying, I'm going to protect white people and transfer it to black. Just by the way, 10% of the population pays 72% of the taxes, and 60% of the expenditure of government goes to poorer people. So there is already a redistributive mechanism, but it's not fundamentally changing the way the financial system works.
Much of this is also something that you looked at in the report, Prof, is that how then does one begin to look at this complex system and then also look at some of the policy decisions that have been taken to try and drive transformation, such as your triple BEE, your Black Economic Empowerment, etc. And in spite of those policy changes, we are not seeing a wholesale effect on issues such as inequality that, let's say, for transformation, for example, if we're looking at government services, yes, we can track how people's lives have changed in 30 years of democracy. But when we have to look at the state of the economy and look at which aspects of the economy these people occupy, then the numbers are still very small, as you've highlighted for us. Why is there this juncture? Why is it that the policy that has been effected and implemented has not really made a dent in terms of changing this monetary architecture? Why is that things still seem to be the same and still seem to be serving particular groups?
You know, I think that the real deep and fundamental root of the problem is conceptual. You know, and as an academic, you might say, oh, well, of course he's going to say that. But I really do think it's true. I think in the South African context, we have a very weak understanding of how the financial system actually works. And as a result, we make decisions around investment, we make decisions at a policy level which are not informed by a sufficient understanding of the complexity of the system and therefore what's going to nudge it in the right direction. Let me give you a very concrete case in point. After the report was published, a few days ago, I got a message from a leading actuary who is very active in the actuarial society of South Africa. In other words, he's very influential in accountancy world. And he said in his long message to me, he wants to work with me because he's been asking questions about why we are not investing in gross capital formation in South Africa. He says, I've been asking these questions for 30 years. Now, this is an actuary whose everyday existence is thinking about money. And he's been asking, why are we not investing more of our available finance and capital in what we need as a society? And he hasn't been able to get answers. And this is because we have we have we have sliced and diced the overall financial system, and there's fiscal policy over there, there's monetary policy over there, there's pension funds over there, there's there's banks who lend money over there. There's households who have their savings, but we don't understand how this all connects in a web of interlocking balance sheets that explains how it works. If we did, I think we'd be able to make decisions in a way that is far more informed about how to allocate capital in accordance with what is required. Let me give you another small example. The Development Finance Institute. These are banks owned by government. You would expect that government would have given them a lot of money in order to invest in what is important to government. This is not what happened. The development finance institutions actually have very small balance sheets, 0.3 trillion. Compare that to the commercial banks, which is 6.7 trillion, nearly the size of our GDP. Now that's out of all whack.
So, as we get ready to wrap the conversation up, and would really, Prof, want to bring you again in the new year so that we give ourselves an opportunity to fully understand what it is that you have uncovered in this report. In the meantime, where does the biggest change need to happen in as far as this understanding that you speak about is concerned? Who within government, within the state, needs to understand what so that different decisions can be made?
Well, I think overall there needs to be a conversation informed by this report. And that's why it's a report for the National Planning, which has an obligation to think long term about the future of South Africa, including the next iteration of a national development plan. So the next national development plan needs to be informed by this way of understanding the financial system. And there needs to be a dialogue that includes a much wider number of stakeholders. Over the state capture years and subsequently, the trust between the financial sector and government has broken down. The financial sector no longer trusts government, and so it doesn't buy government, doesn't invest in SOEs, doesn't invest in government projects. That trust has to get rebuilt, which would be a function of the dialogue I'm talking about. And then you need specific sectors to take responsibility, like the pension sector. It's not about stealing pension money. It's about making sure pension funds invest in projects that generate a return so that when pensioners retire, they can switch on the lights and open the tap and get the service they need. No point in 45% of pension money going offshore and the country collapsing. That doesn't make sense.
Okay. Professor Mark Swilling, thank you for your time. We'll leave it there for today. And again, Prof, we'll be reaching out to you early next year so that we can fully unpack part of what it is you found in this particular work. All right, on that note, that's where we come to the end of the show for today. Up next is the book reading. It'll be followed by the update at noon.
Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SFM presents another episode of the book Boardroom Dancing by Nolita Fakude, read by Vuyokazi Ten.
The value of a mentor. A mentor can be many things to you in your career, but first and foremost, a mentor listens, acting as a sounding board for you to process decisions and arrive at your own conclusions. Besides the obvious personal growth and development that comes from sitting with someone whom you respect and look up to, professionally, as a leader, or spiritually, the one-on-one mentorship relationship is a unique opportunity to practice a level of vulnerability and honesty that can be otherwise scarce in competitive work environments. When thinking of great personal mentors, I often come back to my relationship with Ian Starrock. In our initial conversations, I remember being cautious about how much I would admit to him as my boss if I had fallen short on my targets. However, as our relationship shifted into the mentorship space, I dropped the facade. I knew that his input and feedback came from a desire to see me succeed. Making this transition and accepting unpleasant feedback was not always easy, however. Ian had been my boss for about a year when I came up for promotion to senior manager, head of corporate affairs. I was in the lift one day when one of his colleagues entered and congratulated me. Seeing my puzzled expression, he explained how excited and proud the exco had been to support my promotion. He could see from the confusion that must have been written all over my face that I was still in the dark about the promotion. "Haven't you spoken to Ian?" he said. I explained that Ian was traveling, but I'd seen him 2 weeks prior, and he hadn't mentioned anything about a promotion. "Oh, sorry, I guess I've spoken out of turn. Please don't say anything," he said. When Ian returned from his trip, he came straight to the issue. "I understand the cat's out the bag, Nolita," he said in our first conversation. "Yes, but I'm confused as to why I didn't hear about this from you," I replied. "It seems the committee approved the promotion last quarter." "Well, that's true," he acknowledged. I submitted your name last quarter before you had delivered on Project X. I was so confident that you would deliver. I didn't want to wait for the next cycle." For various reasons, I had yet to complete the project he mentioned, but I had already achieved more than enough merit for the promotion, even without that delivery. "I was waiting for you to deliver the project. I wanted the promotion to be a reward," he said frankly, which was his way. I was very upset. After all, if the committee felt I had earned my promotion, then why Ian block it? I felt it was wrong for him to withhold my promotion because of a single project that was in fact a cherry on top of my other accomplishments. I decided to call our HR director, Dave van Eerden. "Can Ian actually do this?" I asked. "Look, I knew your promotion had gone through, but I've been waiting for Ian to sign off," he replied. "But is there anything I can do about it?" I asked. "I would sleep on it," he advised. "You know, Ian is always your champion. Talk to him about why he hasn't put it through." The next day, I met with Ian, expressing my grievance. "Nolita, as your mentor and your champion in the organization, you must know that I have your best interest at heart. I know you have delivered enough to deserve the promotion, but I'm pushing for you to deliver beyond what your peers are doing. The reality is there are people here who have not fully accepted that you, as the young Black woman in this organization, are achieving everything you have. They think that as your mentor, I am invested in making you look good. Because of that, we have to take your project milestones and commitments very seriously. Not delivering on that project may not seem like a big deal to you, but it makes you and those supporting your cause look bad," he explained. It was a hard pill to swallow. Ultimately, however, I appreciated that as my mentor and boss, Ian did not spare me the tough messages. It may not have been fair that I needed to do more than others to prove myself, but it was true. And because I knew Ian was on my side, I could trust that his decision came from a good place, even if I did not agree with it. The incident was a reminder of the importance of transparently addressing problems and having honest and open discussions in a non-confrontational way to avoid misunderstandings. In particular, when you are in the middle of a professional argument, whether with your peers or boss, you feel you have been wronged and have the reason to be outraged and upset. It does not help your case to push further with someone whom you know has always had your back. Having reflected on that incident since, I have imagined what would have happened if I had gone above Ian and made a scene. Legally, I would have been within my rights to do so, but I suspect that such an action would not have benefited the rest of my stay at Woolies. I had a trust relationship with Ian, so I did not need to escalate the issue, and had I done so, it could have broken that trust. Though I never fully agreed with Ian's decision, I am glad I had the emotional maturity to discuss the problem, making my point and then move on. The policy of sleeping on it paid off time and again throughout my career. My relationship with Ian as my mentor and cheerleader went beyond my woolly stay. Years later, when I was nominated as the BMF president, Ian was my escort for the gala dinner, beside my mother. I could not think of anyone better than him to do the honors. Network exposure. In September 1997, while I was head of corporate affairs at Woolies, the BMF nominated me to participate in the first cohort of the Senior Executive Program, SEP. Jointly run by Harvard University and the University of Witwatersrand, the program was intended to develop leadership capacity in our new democracy. Having received 2 USAID partial scholarships for civil society participants, the BMF reviewed its national membership and ended up sending me and Zwane Lemanyi, who worked for Toyota SA. While the scholarship paid for 50% of our costs, our respective companies covered the balance. Once again, modeling the behavior of companies that walk the talk when it comes to developing staff for leadership. The SEP accepted Black professionals from both the public and private sectors, and there were about 60 of us from across the country, representing chief directors, senior managers, and senior executives from across the spectrum. Like so many development programs, many of our most valuable learnings came from interactions with other participants. Harvard used a case study methodology, and it was fascinating to see how each person approached the cases and devised solutions based on his or her different perspectives or background. The network exposure was incredible. Participating in that program with 60 of the top up-and-coming Black professionals from different sectors and industries, many of whom were already high flyers and key decision makers, raised the bar in terms of how I viewed my own career and ambitions. Those peers became the examples I would later consider when mapping my own career progression, successes, and challenges. Many of them became the people with whom, over the years, I spent in intellectual conversations, as well as the people I knew I could call on moving forward. Soon after returning from the SEP, I took on my 4th and final role at Woolworths. As head of corporate affairs, my job had been about connecting the dots, pulling in different strategic strands and considering all the angles, always asking what we were trying to achieve, what was the big picture, and how we could best position ourselves to achieve our goals. It was in that role that I truly came into my own as a strategist, having developed the sense of what I could comfortably do and ceasing to second-guessing myself unnecessarily.
There was another episode of the book Boardroom Dancing by Nolita Fagude, read by Vuyokazi Tebe. The book is available online and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on The Talking Point. The book is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Vuyokazi Tebe. Technical production, Wiseman Manwele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuru.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.9 FM in Port Elizabeth.
Well, it's a minute after 12, and welcome to Updated Noon, a special broadcast coming to you live here from Ekurhuleni at the Birchwood Conference Center, to be exact. And we are, of course, broadcasting from the ANC's 5th NGC, currently on day 2 of 4. And just taking a look at what has already happened, the opening speeches on day 1, those have been concluded. We have the commissions already in session today and waiting some of the feedback briefings that will give the rest of us, of course, a sense into what is happening. But of course, some other stories also making the headlines. The non-payment of ANC staff continues to cloud day 2 of the party's National General Council that is currently underway here in the East Rand. And we'll also relook and debunk both the party's addresses by President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Secretary General Fikile Mbalula. And coming up in sport,
Bafana management ask FIFA to respect African football, and there's plenty cricket to tell you about as the Proteas start their T20 series against India.
and of course, that's John Gericke with more sports news later on in the show. And as always, you are more than welcome to let us know your thoughts on what you make of the stories that we bring you and what's happening here at the ANC's NGC. Share your views via SMS on 41391. You can WhatsApp us on 0826923909 with those voice notes, or you can also send us your messages via X at Update at Noon or using at SABC News _radio. Well, all of this still to come, but first let's bring you up to speed with the latest news. Here's Ondelambana.
Thank you, Sakina. On the top stories, the ANC Nehau talks on salaries underway and pedestrians arrested during a Gauteng traffic operation. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. The ANC says talks with the National Health, Education and Allied Workers Union, NEHAO, are underway to rectify the non-payment of staff salaries. This after Lutuli House staff members picketed outside the Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg yesterday, where the ANC's 5th National General Council is being held. Staff members raised concern over the non-payment of salaries and other benefits, as it seems the ANC's financial situation may be deteriorating. ANC National Spokesperson Mahlengi Bengu.
There are ongoing conversations between the union that represents staff of the ANC, NEHAO, and management at Lutuli House. That is ongoing. We are committed to doing what is correct because the ANC wants to turn around the situation of making sure that our talented members of staff are remunerated on time and consistently as it should be, because they contribute a lot to the success of our organization.
The Department of Education in the Eastern Cape has warned schools that anyone who deliberately withholds academic reports will be dealt with decisively. The department says withholding of these report cards is illegal and contravenes the South African Schools Act. Department spokesperson Malibongo Mdima says it's within learners' rights to know how they performed throughout the year.
Principals of all schools are accordingly reminded of this important section of SASA and are cautioned that any withholding of report or academic reports any season is not allowed. Second managers are implored to bring the content of this memo to all schools and ensure monitoring of its implementation without fail. All report cards shall be issued upon the quality assurance and approval of the schedule by second managers.
28 pedestrians were arrested on the N14 freeway near Muldersdrift, west of Johannesburg yesterday during a Gauteng traffic police operation. The festive season enforcement plan is in full swing, targeting lawlessness on the roads. Gauteng police spokesperson Sillo Marimane says pedestrians on freeways are a major crash risk that contributes to road fatalities.
We will continue to conduct this kind of operation throughout the festive period and beyond to save lives. It remains illegal in terms of the law for a pedestrian to be on a freeway. We are therefore issuing a stern warning to road users that no form of lawlessness will be tolerated during this festive period.
Gauteng motorists have been urged to avoid the R500 road in Carltonville, west of Johannesburg, due to a sinkhole that continues to collapse. According to the Provincial Department of Roads and Transport, preliminary assessments indicate that over 80% of the road surface has caved in, making the route extremely unsafe. The department says they continue to assess the full extent of the damage and urge the public to cooperate with authorities by using of alternative routes until further notice. Refile Mekwa has more.
The department says the affected section has been closed off while technical teams are being dispatched to conduct a full safety evaluation. Motorists are urged to use alternative routes and exercise extreme caution when approaching or traveling in and around the area. Gauteng MEC for Roads and Transport, Kidiboni Di Aile Tlabela, has called for heightened vigilance. Refile Mekwa,